Guys, what's up and welcome back to my channel. So today we are going to be talking about something serious, but before we get into that, two disclaimers. Beanies with cat ears work out sometimes, but other times it's giving piglet, like this one right here. Like, what is this? Second thing, a girly is exhausted. I have been writing papers for what feels like a decade because of finals and all of that. So if I'm loopy, if I seem out of it, between that and having a cold, so taking Dayquil and NyQuil, your girl is just... Anyway, there's this clip that's gone viral. Now, I hadn't realized how viral it had gone until I saw it on my timeline, so I kind of figured it was catering to my algorithm, knowing that I talk about things like sexual assault and pedophilia and stuff like that. A lot of weird shit comes up on my timeline, so I didn't realize that it was, like I said, more viral until a friend of mine texted me being like, "Did you see this?" And then I was like, oh shit, so this is really out there. So I'm gonna show you the clip in a second. To be very clear, it is jarring and you'll understand why, but I do wanna emphasize the fact that it does refer to indirectly sexual assault / rape. Indirectly. So if that is a trigger for you, keep that in account. So this is the clip that we're gonna be talking about. And remember, I came across this with absolutely no context, and this is the only context that's online because I want to show you what the narrative is right this minute. Does that make sense?
Teen Spirit. That was weird behind the scenes for you and I, eh?
Oh my god, eh?
So, I had a little crush on Chris this one night with the aid of some Ambien and the condom from the hotel desk manager's wallet. The next morning, I wake up with no clothes on. Chris was up and had been to the gym already, so he comes in the door and he's like, "It's time for set." And I remember I was acting like a bitch the rest of the day, A, because I didn't remember it, and B, because maybe it wasn't the reaction I was like hoping for from you or something.
A lot happens in this short clip. Very realistically, what is jarring here for me, in my opinion, is the fact that this is talked about in such a lighthearted manner. Like, the way she's talking about what happened is very like la-di-da. And I know that certain people do that with trauma. I'm not projecting that onto her. I do that with my own traumas. Even my therapist is like, girl, this is like not normal. But you know, sometimes when something horrific happens, the only way you can talk about it is being very blasé, jaded, whatever about it, okay? Not saying that's the case here. I mean, it could be, but I'm not saying it's the case here. That being said, a lot of people who saw this clip were very confused at what was being said, the tone of how it was being said, and the reception of the other people in the podcast. So this is from Ned's Declassified Podcast Survival Guide, which is based on Ned's Declassified School Survival Guide. I never saw that, just for context, so I don't really have a bias here because all of these people are brand new to me, but that is the context. So the two people talking here are Lindsay Shaw and Chris Zilka, I think you pronounce it. Anyway, they were both in the movie Teen Spirit, this one, okay? Now, in that movie, here's a still I got from that movie. Now, a lot of people called into question how old they were when all of this happened. And from what I've seen, the movie came out in 2011. Lindsay Shaw was born in 1989, so it doesn't seem to be a minor situation. I could be wrong because I looked at the comments on TikTok and there were a lot of people who were claiming that they were younger. Maybe I'm missing something, or maybe people are just bullshitting on TikTok, which would not be new by any means, but just keep that into account. Based on what I found, they were not minors. Now, all of that is really just context. I don't think it's that important to know because it's beside the point. It's complicated. First of all, I'll put the comments here. Now, I don't know if the comments are filtered because this was on the TikTok of Ned's pod, so the podcast in question. So I don't know if they're filtered. I don't know if they're deleting. I don't know what they're doing because this went viral on Twitter, and most people on Twitter, which granted is not a representation of every social media and every person's thought, but if a majority on Twitter is going to think a certain type of way, a lot of the times there's at least going to be a handful of people who think the same way on TikTok. When I check TikTok, All the comments I saw just scrolling. As you can see, there aren't many comments being like, hey, this is weird. This could be perceived as sexual assault. This is not okay. Like, a lot of people were talking about how Shaw basically had crushes on everyone or got with a lot of people from shows based on other TikToks that I also saw. Everyone seemed to be like, you go girl, he was so cute, he was hot, blah, blah, blah. But it seems like they were missing the point that was, she took Ambien and didn't remember anything of the night. Do we see the problem here? Now, the reason why I say this is complicated is the way she posited it, the way she put it out there, and she may feel differently, but I'm saying the way it read to me was not that she was putting it out there as seeing herself as a victim of some kind of assault or rape. It very much seemed like she was just telling an anecdote. I think that's also why a lot of people were pausing, because they're like, holy shit, what you just said is not an anecdote. A lot of people on Twitter, which for some reason in this particular case seems to be rather rational, to be honest. A lot of people were like, wait, this is not an anecdote. This technically, potentially, depending on the details that I don't know, could count as an assault. Now, my position in all of this is I have questions. Based on the information put out there, everyone looks bad. Everyone looks bad for the reason that we don't know if he knew that she took an Ambien, right? Because if she took an Ambien and she told him, because it depends on how much your body is showing that you took X pill or drank X amount, right? Because it also depends on your tolerance. But back in the day, I had a very high tolerance with alcohol. When I was like 19, in my party phase, where it was legal to drink at 19, mind you, I could do a number of shots and be relatively fine. My friend, on the other hand, couldn't do half of those without being fucking gone, just obliterated. So if we take into account this as a silly little example from me, we need to count in all these factors of what is someone's tolerance, but also, does the other person know? Because if she took an Ambien and there were no visible signs, which is kind of hard for me to believe because at one point I was prescribed Ambien. I never ended up picking up the prescription because I read too much shit that scared the hell out of me. So I was like, no, thank you. But there are a lot of adverse reactions to Ambien. I don't know that it could be completely masked, but again, we don't know that. So if he didn't know that she took Ambien and she wasn't showing any direct signs of being fucked up, if they slept together and he didn't know that, then I don't know how much we can blame him because he would have thought that she was consenting without knowing that she was under the influence. Does that make sense? So that's confusing. If he did know that she took the Ambien, then it's a lot more complicated because, first of all, if someone took a pill that's that strong, depending on the dosage, but still that's serious, it's not a fucking ibuprofen. If someone took something like that, probably the best bet should just don't do anything. Honestly, do not do anything. For your own sake and for the sake of the person, because I think at that point, neither of you can really tell how much is consent and how much is someone maybe being fucked up or having their mind altered even just a bit. But that's exactly what makes all of this complicated, along with the fact that she told it like an anecdote. So it's like at this point, nobody can tell what was a wanted sexual encounter, what was consent if there was consent, and then what was potentially a sexual assault that is now being told like a funny little anecdote. So it's this kind of circular thing of you keep having all these questions and no answers. And the other thing is also, it's kind of wild to me that the podcast saw this footage and did not for a second question, hey, this could be misinterpreted. This could be read as not okay. And granted, I am cynical enough to believe that certain podcasts would see that and be like, this is gold, this is gonna cause controversy, this is gonna make some idiot YouTuber, hi, me, talk about this. So I'm not excluding that. Honestly, my belief in humanity is so low, it would almost make sense if they were trying to make money off someone's potential trauma. At this point, I don't really know what to make of it. I wanted to ask you guys what you make of it, but it's been all over my timeline. Just for context, on Twitter, The way this is circulating, and it has 4.5 million views right now, this particular tweet, but it's not the first one I've seen, says, "You can tell he knew it was rape because you can see the smile disappearing from his face." Now, I don't know about the smile disappearing from his face or whatever. Of course, it's bad news. I don't know if he was thinking that deeply about it. But that's how Twitter perceives it. And in fact, if I look at the comments even here, the way she said she didn't remember anything so casually, it's so sad when victims can't recognize they're a victim. Ambien makes you severely knocked out, especially if you fight it. Your words become slurred, you almost sleepwalk with it, and you don't remember a thing. I know someone who would abuse it. Now that is exactly one of the reasons why I did not want to take Ambien. I have heard one too many stories about people fucking driving and not even remembering that they were driving after they took an Ambien, or just like making pasta in the middle of the night, which for me would be the equivalent of burning my house down, I'm sure. So that is exactly why this whole Ambien thing is so alarming, because it is Ambien and it has all of these adverse effects. Even my psychiatrist, I remember, just listed all these things that could go wrong, and I was like, no. Now, in the comments, it also says, "You need to watch the podcast. This discourse is so tiring." She explicitly says she consented. Now, someone commented back saying you can't consent when you're on Ambien. Now, this is the thing that we're going back to. Why did they choose to make the TikTok like this? Because if you're making the TikTok like this, you are relying on people to not check the context. So realistically, I honestly am kind of disgusted if what they are effectively doing is trying to spin a kind of controversial narrative to get all the views. So I went to check the podcast episode to see if there was anything quote unquote redeeming or something that makes this seem less grim than it is. The section that I saw that discussed this didn't really make anything much better. I'll put it in here, but I don't really think it changes much. So I don't know if I missed something in this podcast that they say she wasn't fucked up on Ambien anymore or something. But honestly, this kind of makes it look worse, because the part where she talks about kind of going in and out of awareness when they were waiting to get the condom, that makes it look so much worse in my opinion. I don't know if I'm missing something.
Really?
Yeah, and then what movie did we do with Gil?
Teen Spirit? Teen Spirit.
I haven't seen that. What's that about?
I'm going to be honest with you, Chris. So that was a super fun shoot, but that was weird behind the scenes for you and I, eh?
Oh my god, eh?
Eh?
Hey.
Why was it weird?
Yeah.
Okay. So I had a little crush on Chris, okay?
I mean, look at him. Yeah.
We had like gone out to the club like the night or like the week before that. We were gonna fly out to North Carolina and got a little bit of our Mac on, right? And then you got booked for Teen Spirit. And I was like, oh my gosh, great. We're gonna be in North Carolina, like blah, 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 in the same hotel. And like the vibe just like wasn't like that when we got back together. But this one night, with the aid of some Ambien and the condom from the hotel desk manager's wallet,
Okay.
I
just remember
face.
going down and being like, we need it.
Going down.
And he goes, I have one in my wallet.
It's my personal condom.
Yep. So he gave us his personal condom. Chris, do
But
you remember
like,
any of this?
just like at midnight, 12:30, like if I could be like a fly on the wall, or even worse, like a guest walking into the hotel,
Right.
and me and Lindsay are like propped up on like the like talking to the concierge, like, so can we have it?
So I was like, I need it, like going in and out of Ambien, like, and so that's when I like black out for the night, right? The next morning I wake up with no clothes on, right? And so I'm like, what? And then Chris was up and had been to the gym already, so he comes in the door and he's like, it's time for set. And I like remember I was acting like a bitch the rest of the day, A, because I didn't remember it, and B, because I don't know, like maybe it wasn't the reaction I was like hoping for from you or something. But I remember I was just like crushed, and then like we are just best friends. You know what I mean? Like that's what you've always been to me, and I love you. And
I
that
know.
is enough.
And like,
you know what I mean? But that extra thing would have been like fun to explore, but it's always been so enough with you.
Oh my God, exactly. And same with me. And I had feelings too. I caught like major feelings. Just was like so terrified at the time. Like, you know, but it's like really been wonderful. Like even this morning, like kind of prepping myself mentally for this because like I'm so like I could never do acting class. Like I did acting class, but like live shit, like I'm terrified to do. Like if a camera's in front of me, I'm in heaven.
No pressure on the
but
dance
like
part.
doing a live podcast is even like I looked at my stepmom this morning. I was like, I'm fucking nervous. Like I'm so nervous, and she's like, you have nothing to be nervous about. Your brother and sister know about the podcast, and I'm like, oh, even better, guys.
Wow.
But like, it's just been a joy. Like as friendships, like I spent 20 years in LA, and I think you, probably Jordan and Katie Welch are like the only three friends like real friends that I have. To be 100% honest, like it's just like it's so far and few between, and like just like I'll go back to Ohio, and my mom still asks like about you, and like also like the dog that you.
Gypsy!
Yes.
He's the one who gave me Gypsy.
Oh, no way.
Yeah.
So I wanted to include this part just to show you kind of what happened at the very beginning of the conversation and how the conversation kind of ended. From my perspective, the way in which she's acting, which doesn't necessarily reflect how she feels, is that they're still great friends. Like, I don't know at the end of the day what actually occurred. A lot of people think that there's denial. I don't feel comfortable making those types of conclusions, so I really at this point don't know. But I don't really think any of this extra stuff that I showed you here super changes anything. On the contrary, the fact that she was already that fucked up when getting the condom from the desk lobby dude, whatever, that to me makes things look a lot worse, because it's not like there were no signs and all of a sudden there was this big sign of, oh yeah, she's fucked up. It seems like it would have been obvious already, which then makes it difficult to give any benefit of the doubt, what I was saying before about tolerance, because here it seems like it was evident that shit was fucked up. You guys can let me know what you think in the comments down below. Anyway, thank you guys so much for watching. Thank you to my patrons as always, and I'll catch you guys next time.